Christmas Eve, 1896. Bagley Avenue, Detroit. A brick shed behind a rented house lit by a single kerosene lantern that swings like a hanged man. Inside, the quadricycle waits. 4 bicycle wheels, a 2-cylinder engine no bigger than a sewing machine, a tiller for steering, no brakes, no roof, no reverse. Henry Ford, 33, coat off, sleeves rolled, face black with grease, stands beside it like a priest about to sacrifice his firstborn. Clara is in the house, nursing their dead baby's memory and a new hope growing in her belly. Henry has invited 12 men, investors, reporters, friends, enemies. They crowd the tiny yard in overcoats and top hats, breath fogging in the freezing air. A reporter from the Detroit Journal asks, "Will it really run without horses, Mr. Ford?" Henry's answer is to kick the flywheel. The engine coughs, spits blue fire, then settles into a steady put-put-put that sounds like the heartbeat of tomorrow. The crowd gasps. Henry climbs aboard, wraps his fingers around the tiller. He looks once toward the house where Clara stands in the window, hand on her belly, nodding. He opens the throttle. The quadricycle lurches forward, chain clanking, exhaust barking. It rolls out of the shed, down the alley, onto Bagley Avenue. 20 miles an hour on ice-slicked bricks. The crowd cheers like it's the second coming. Henry grins so wide his face hurts. He makes it 3 blocks, turns the corner onto Woodward Avenue, the busiest street in Detroit. Carriages scatter, horses rear, pedestrians scream. A policeman blows his whistle uselessly. Henry Ford is flying. Then the dream ends. The engine coughs once, violently. A connecting rod snaps. The whole machine shudders, throws a piston through the crankcase, dies with a metallic scream. Henry coasts to a stop in front of the Pontchartrain Hotel, richest place in town. Silence. Then laughter from the fancy crowd on the sidewalk. A banker in a beaver hat shouts, "Nice toy, farmer." Another yells, "Go back to your plow." Henry sits there, engine ticking as it cools, gasoline dripping onto the snow. For the first time in his life, he feels small. The investors who followed in carriages turn away without a word. The reporters scribble headlines. Ford's folly fails spectacularly. Henry pushes the dead quadricycle home alone, 3 miles through mocking crowds. By the time he reaches Bagley Avenue, his hands are frozen to the tiller. Clara meets him at the gate. She does not ask what happened. She simply takes the wrench from his pocket, hands him coffee and says, "Fix it." He works 96 hours straight. No sleep, no food except what Clara forces into him. He rebuilds the engine stronger, adds a 2nd cylinder, water cooling, a real transmission. On March 24, 1897, he fires it up again. This time, it runs perfectly. He drives it to the investors' offices one by one, parks in front, revs the engine until they come out. Then he looks each man in the eye and says, "You laughed. Now watch." He founds the Detroit Automobile Company in 1900 with their money. They give him $150,000 to build cars. He builds 20, all different, all expensive, all slow to sell. The board panics. They want fancy cars for rich men. Henry wants cars for everyone. In 1901, they fire him, take his company, take his name off the building. He walks out with nothing but the clothes on his back and the quadricycle parked outside. Reporters ask, "Will you try again, Mr. Ford?" He answers with a smile that scares them. Third time's the charm. He goes home to Clara. She is waiting on the porch with a cup of coffee and a single sentence: "Build something they can't take away." That night, he starts drawing the car that will bear his name forever, the Model A. The first crash that failed in 1896 taught him one lesson he never forgot. Dreams don't die from breaking. They die from quitting. And Henry Ford has just learned how to bleed without dying. The first crash was not the end. It was the baptism in gasoline and humiliation. And from that night forward, every engine he ever built carried the scar of that Christmas Eve when the world laughed, and Henry Ford learned to laugh last. 1882 to 1887. The Ford Farm, Greenfield Township. Henry is back from Detroit, 24 years old, married to Clara, living in the little white house his father gave them as a wedding gift, part bribe, part punishment. By day, he runs a sawmill on 40 acres of timber William deeded him to keep him busy and out of trouble. By night, the woodshed becomes a cathedral of fire and iron. He has dragged a 600-pound Westinghouse steam engine into the shed piece by piece on a stone boat pulled by oxen. Neighbors think he's gone completely mad. Clara knows better. She brings him coffee at 2 a.m., kisses the soot on his cheek, and says nothing when he forgets to come to bed for 3 days straight. Inside the shed, the air is superheated, thick with coal smoke and the smell of hot oil. The engine squats on the dirt floor like a sleeping dragon. Flywheel taller than Henry, boiler wrapped in asbestos, piston rods thick as a man's arm. He has torn it down to the last bolt, cleaned every part with kerosene, rebuilt it better than the factory ever did. On the night of December 24th, 1885, Christmas Eve, the temperature outside drops to 10 below zero. Inside the shed, it is hell. Henry wears only overalls, sweat pouring off him like rain. Clara stands in the doorway, wrapped in a shawl, holding their newborn son, Edsel, watching her husband talk to the machine the way priests talk to God. He opens the throttle a crack. The flywheel groans. He pumps the injector water. The pressure gauge climbs. 40, 60, 80. He lights the firebox with a torch made from a corn cob soaked in kerosene. Blue flame roars up the stack. The entire shed shakes. 100 psi, 120, 140. The safety valve lifts with a scream. Steam screams like 1,000 demons. Henry's eyes are wild, shining, terrifying. He throws the clutch. The 8-foot flywheel spins so fast it becomes a silver blur. The drive belt whips. The line shaft overhead explodes in the motion. Every lathe, drill press, and grinder he has bolted to the rafters comes alive at once. The shed becomes a single living, roaring organism. Henry Ford stands in the middle of it, arms spread like Christ on the cross, laughing and crying at the same time.
Clara whispers, "Henry, it's beautiful." He cannot hear her over the thunder. He screams into the noise, "This is power! This is the future!" The engine runs for 6 straight hours. He feeds it coal until his hands blister. He adjusts valves until his fingers bleed. He does not stop until the first gray light of Christmas morning creeps through the cracks. Then he shuts it down. Silence falls so heavy it hurts. He staggers out into the snow barefoot, collapses on his knees and vomits from pure exhaustion. Clara wraps a blanket around him. He looks up at her with eyes that have seen God and the devil at the same time. He whispers, "I understand now. Steam is too big, too hungry. It wants whole forests for breakfast." He stands up, swaying. "I need something smaller, something that drinks gasoline, something a farmer can keep in his barn." That night he starts drawing. Not steam anymore. Internal combustion. A single cylinder. Air-cooled. Light enough for one man can lift it. He works through Christmas Day, through New Year's, through the worst blizzard Michigan has seen in 20 years. Clara brings food he forgets to eat. Baby Edsel sleeps in a crate beside the drafty table. By spring 1887, he has built it. A 1-cylinder, 4-stroke engine no bigger than a sewing machine, running on stove gasoline, making 4 horsepower at 600 RPM. He mounts it on a wooden frame with bicycle wheels. He calls it the kitchen sink engine because every part came from something else. On a warm April evening, he wheels it out into the yard. The entire neighborhood gathers, thinking he had finally lost his mind. William Ford stands at the back, arms crossed, ready to say, "I told you so." Henry pours a cup of gasoline into the tank. He spins the flywheel. Once. Twice. Third time it catches. The little engine barks to life with a sound like an angry dog. Blue smoke pours out. The whole machine shakes like it wants to fly apart. Henry climbs on, grabs the tiller, opens the throttle. The contraption lurches forward, scattering chickens, knocking over a rain barrel, and shoots down the farm lane at 12 miles an hour. Clara screams. Edsel, 2 years old, claps and laughs. William Ford's mouth hangs open. Henry turns at the end of the lane, comes roaring back, face split in the biggest grin the world has ever seen. He kills the engine, and the silence is deafening. Then he looks straight at his father and says the sentence that ends one life and begins another. "Pa, the horse is dead. Long live the machine." William turns and walks away. Without a word. He will never speak to Henry again. But Henry does not care. He has heard the future cough and sputter and roar to life under his hands. And from that moment forward, every night when he closes his eyes, he hears that little 1-cylinder heartbeat. It says, "Faster, cheaper, for every man." The steam obsession is over. The gasoline age has begun. And the farm boy who once talked to watches has just taught the world to talk back in a language of fire and steel that will never shut up again.
Detroit at night is a furnace of gas lamps and sin. 19-year-old Henry Ford walks down Jefferson Avenue with oil still under his fingernails and $11 in his pocket, more money than his father sees in 3 months. He rents a tiny room above a saloon on Congress Street for $1.50 a week. The bed is a cot. The window faces a brick wall, and the walls are so thin he can hear the couple next door fighting in Polish. He loves every inch of it. By day, he works at the Michigan Car Company Works, running massive steam engines that pull streetcars. By night, he becomes the fastest watch repairman in the city. Word has spread. The quiet kid with the country accent can fix anything with springs. Sailors fresh off the Great Lakes, bankers in silk vests, even whores from the riverfront bring him their broken timepieces. He charges 25 cents for a cleaning, 50 for a new mainspring, $1 if the balance staff is snapped. He works on a workbench made from an old door balanced on sawhorses, lit by a single kerosene lamp that throws his shadow huge against the wall. The room smells of whale oil, cigar smoke, and the sweet metal tang of possibility. He keeps a ledger in pencil. Monday, 14 watches, $4.75. Tuesday, 18 watches, $6.20. Wednesday, 22 watches, $8.10. At the end of the first month, he counts $187 in a coffee tin hidden under the floorboard. He stares at the money for a long time, then walks to the Western Union office and sends exactly $0 home. He buys a new suit instead, black wool, first store-bought clothes of his life. He stands in front of the cracked mirror and barely recognizes the man looking back, tall, thin, eyes burning like forge coals. Clara's latest letter is pinned above the bench. "Come home for Christmas. Your mother misses you. I miss you more." He writes back on the back of a repair ticket. "I am learning how the world really ticks. One day I'll bring the whole clock home with me." Every repaired watch was a small declaration of independence. A drunk riverboat captain brings him a gold Elgin so battered it looks like it survived a war. Henry fixes it in 20 minutes, hands it back ticking perfectly. The captain tries to tip him $5. Henry refuses the tip. "Just tell every man on the river. If it's broken, Henry Ford can make it live again." Word spread faster than cholera. Soon he has to turn work away. He starts hiring 2 assistants, boys younger than he is, hungry the way he was hungry. He pays them $4 a week and teaches them everything. They call him boss, even though he's only 20. One February night in 1880, a man in a top hat brings him a chronometer worth more than the entire building. It belonged to a Great Lakes captain who died when his ship went down in a storm. The widow wants it working so her son will have something of his father. Henry works 36 hours straight without sleep. When he hands it back, perfect, the woman cries and tries to pay double. He charges only his usual $1. She kisses his cheek and says, "God sent you." He answers, "No, ma'am, I sent myself." That night, he sits on the roof of the boarding house. City lights spread below him like spilled jewels, and makes a list in his head. Master every machine work. Master electricity. Rumors of Edison's bulb. Build a horseless carriage. Make it cheap enough for every farmer. Never plow again. He's earning more in a week than William Ford earns in 2 months. He starts sending money home, not to his father, to his mother, Mary, with notes that say only, "For the house, love, Henry." William burns the envelopes unopened. Henry doesn't care. He's buying tools now, a lathe, a milling machine, a drill press, all second-hand, all paid in cash from broken watches. He ships them to the farm in secret, addressed to his younger brother, John.
The neighbors think the Ford boys have lost their minds. Henry knows he has only just found his. In the spring of 1882, he quits the Michigan Car Company. The foreman begs him to stay. "You're the best damn machinist I ever saw." Henry's answer is simple. "I'm not here to fix other men's machines anymore. I'm here to build mine." He hangs a sign on his door. H. Ford, watch repair and experimental machinist. No job too small, no dream too large. Below it, in smaller letters, will trade work for gasoline engine parts. Detroit laughs. The city has seen 100 dreamers come and go, but none of them had hands that could make a dead watch sing. None of them had eyes that looked at a horse and saw obsolescence. None of them carried the memory of a father's whip in every swing of the hammer. The watch repairman's wages bought him something more valuable than money. They bought him time. Time to dream, time to plan, time to become the man who would one day put the world on wheels. And every tick of every repaired watch was counting down to the moment Henry Ford would stop fixing time and start making it run on his terms. The city boy was born in a barn, but he came alive above a saloon with a lamp, a toolbox, and the sound of 1,000 watches, all whispering the same thing. Hurry, the future is waiting.
Detroit smells of coal smoke, horse piss, and possibility. 16-year-old Henry Ford steps off the wagon with nothing but a cardboard suitcase, $2.85 in his pocket, and the taste of Dearborn dirt still on his tongue. William's last words echo in his ears. "If you leave this farm, you're no son of mine." Henry does not look back. He finds work at James Flower & Brothers Machine Shop on Woodward Avenue, a brick hell where the furnaces never cool and the hammers never stop. The foreman, a German named Schmidt with arms like bridge cables, looks at the skinny farm boy and laughs. "You'll last a week." Henry lasts forever. He is assigned to the blacksmith's corner, the hottest, dirtiest, loudest place in the shop. The forge roars like a dragon. Sparks shower like golden rain. Men stripped to the waist swing 10-pound sledges until their eyes bleed sweat. Henry is given a 2-pound hammer and told to beat iron into submission. He beats it into art. On the first day, he watches the master smith draw a glowing bar from the fire, fold it like bread dough, hammer it until it sings, quench it in oil that explodes into blue flame. The metal comes out alive, perfect, unbreakable. Henry feels something inside him ignite hotter than the forge. He works 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, for $2.50. He sleeps on the floor of the shop beside the boilers, wakes when the night shift kicks him, eats cold beans from a tin. But he is free. Every night he sketches in a notebook stolen from the office. Steam valves, flywheels, crankshafts, things no one has built yet. The older men mock him. Farm boy thinks he's an engineer. He answers by fixing their broken lathes in half the time. By month 3, he's running the shop's most complex jobs. By month 6, the owners offer him a raise to $4 a week if he stays forever. He refuses. He has seen something bigger. Across the river, the Michigan Car Company is building streetcars powered by steam. Henry spends every Sunday there, staring at the massive engines, asking questions until the engineers chase him away.
One Sunday, he sneaks inside after dark, climbs into the firebox of a locomotive, and just sits in the dark, feeling the iron heart that moves cities. He whispers to it, "I will build something smaller, something every man can own, something that will make locomotives look slow." Back at Flower Brothers, the men start calling him Crazy Henry. He answers by building a working steam engine from scrap in the corner of the shop, 1 foot long, perfect, running on alcohol. When he fires it up for the first time, the entire shop stops. The little engine screams, spins a flywheel so fast it blurs, powers a tiny drill that cuts steel like butter. The owners offer him $100 to sell the patent. He refuses. This is just the beginning. That night, the foreman finds him asleep beside the cold forge, notebook open to a drawing labeled "Road Engine, no horses, 4 wheels, seats 4, speed 20 mph. The foreman shakes his head and mutters, "Boy's gonna burn the world down." Henry wakes at 4 a.m., lights the forge, and starts again. Every hammer blow is a promise. Every spark is a rebellion. Every piece of iron he bends is a piece of his father's farm he is breaking forever. By the end of 1878, he's the best machinist in Detroit. He can take any broken part, any ruined casting, and make it better than new. He earns $11 a week, more than his father makes in a month. He sends none of it home. Instead, he buys tools, books, a second-hand lathe he sets up in a rented room on Congress Street. He works days at the shop, nights on his own engines. He sleeps 3 hours, dreams in blueprints. Clara Bryant, the quiet girl from Greenfield he met at a harvest dance, writes him letters he keeps in his toolbox. She writes, "Your hands smell of fire and freedom. Come home when you're ready. I will wait." He writes back, "I am building a world where no one has to wait for harvest again." In 1879, the shop burns down. Arson, they say. Henry stands in the ashes at dawn, coat singed, face black with soot, and smiles for the first time in years. The blacksmith's apprentice is done learning. The forge has given him everything it had. Now he will build his own fire, one that will never go out. And the iron he learned to bend in that Detroit hell will one day bend the entire world to his will, because the boy who once hammered plowshares is about to beat them into horsepower. And nothing, not his father, not poverty, not the laughter of men who never dreamed big enough, will ever stop the sound of that hammer ringing in Henry Ford's soul for the rest of his life.
The year is 1873. Dearborn is still a place where the nearest railroad is a rumor, and the only clock in town owns is the sun. But inside the Ford barn, 10-year-old Henry has built a world that runs on gears. He sits cross-legged on the dirt floor, surrounded by a graveyard of broken pocket watches he has rescued from trash heaps, church donations, and the occasional corpse at a funeral. The undertaker lets him take them if he promises to be quiet. Sunlight leaks through the cracks in the boards, painting golden stripes across his freckled face and the hundreds of tiny brass wheels scattered like treasure. His fingers, already scarred from plow blades and barbed wire, move with the delicate certainty of a surgeon. Click, tick, click. A mainspring uncoils, a balance wheel spins, a dead watch suddenly remembers how to breathe.
Henry whispers to it the way other boys whisper to horses. "Come on, old friend, tell me your secret." And the watch answers with a soft, perfect tick that makes his heart explode. He has no teacher, only instinct, only hunger. At night, he steals candle stubs from the kitchen and works until the roosters scream. His mother Mary finds him asleep on the floor more than once, cheek pressed against a half-rebuilt movement, drool mixing with gear oil. She covers him with a quilt and says nothing to William. William would beat the devil out of him if he knew. But Mary sees something holy in the way her son makes dead things live again. One Sunday after church, the preacher's Waltham watch stops mid-sermon. The entire congregation holds its breath while the man of God shakes his wrist like it has betrayed him. 12-year-old Henry stands up in the back pew, walks forward, and says, "I can fix it." The preacher laughs until Henry takes the watch, opens the case with a pocket knife, blows out a speck of dust, and hands it back, ticking louder than before. The church goes dead silent. Then the preacher says the words that will follow Henry for the rest of his life. "Boy, you have the touch of the Lord in those hands." William hears about it on the way home and waits with the buggy whip. That night, Henry gets the worst beating of his childhood. William screams, "Machines are the devil's toys. You'll plow or you'll starve." Henry does not cry. He lies in the loft afterward, back bleeding, staring at the moon through the rafters, and makes a promise to the dark. "I will build machines so big that no whip can reach me." The watches keep him sane. Every fixed timepiece is a small victory against the farm. By 13, he has a reputation across 3 counties. Farmers bring him their broken clocks wrapped in rags like sick babies. He fixes them for a nickel or a jar of jam, or nothing at all if they look hungry. He starts signing the inside of every case with a tiny etched HF, so that years later, when the watch is passed to a grandson, the boy will open it and see the ghost of the farm kid who made time obey him. One winter evening, 1875, a traveling salesman leaves a brand-new 1874 issue Waterbury watch as payment for fixing a thresher. It is the most beautiful thing Henry has ever seen. Nickel case, Roman numerals, perfect sweep second-hand. He stays awake 3 nights straight, taking it apart and putting it back together, learning every secret. On the 4th night, he does something no one has ever done. He modifies it. He adds a tiny lever that makes the watch strike the hour like a church bell. When he winds it and the first chime rings out in the silent barn, Henry Ford, 13 years old, starts to cry. Not from pain, from joy. Because for the first time he understands. Machines don't just obey, they can sing. He runs into the house at 2 a.m., bursts into his parents' bedroom, and holds the chiming watch above his sleeping father's face. "Listen, Pa, listen what I made." William wakes swinging. The watch flies across the room, crystal shatters, chimes die mid-note. William roars, "I'll beat the devil out of you yet." Henry stands there in the dark, barefoot, bleeding from the lip, staring at the broken watch on the floor. Something inside him hardens forever. He picks up the pieces, walks back to the barn, and works until dawn repairing it. When it chimes again, perfect and clear, he whispers to it, "They can break us, but we will always come back ticking. Years later, when he builds the quadricycle, when he launches the Model T, when he forces the entire world to run on his schedule, people will marvel at his genius. They will never understand it was born right here, in a freezing barn, on a dirt floor, talking to broken watches that taught a farm boy the only language he would ever truly trust. The language of metal, the language of motion, the language of making the dead live again. And from that night forward, every engine Henry Ford ever built carried inside it the ghost of a 13-year-old boy who once made a watch sing just to prove the world could be beautiful if you were brave enough to take it apart and put it back together your own way. The boy who talked to watches grew up to make the whole world listen.
Dearborn, Michigan. A farm so poor the wind can hear the money crying. The Ford family cabin squats in the middle of 80 acres of stubborn clay that fights every plow like it has a grudge. Inside, William Ford, Irish immigrant with hands like oak roots and a voice that brooks no argument, hammers a table leg while his wife, Mary Littogott, German Swiss, stirs soup from potatoes that look like they fought to grow. Outside, the Civil War rages 600 miles south, but here the only battles are with frost that kills the corn and debt that kills the hope. Mary goes into labor on a Tuesday night when the snow is so thick it muffles the wolves. William paces the dirt floor, cursing God and Gaelic for the 8th child he cannot afford. The midwife arrives with a lantern that throws shadows like demons on the log walls. Mary screams once, hard, then bites down on a leather strap because screaming costs breath, and breath costs strength on a farm that takes everything. At 10:47 p.m., when the fire is dying and the midwife is ready to give up, Henry Ford is born. He does not cry. He stares. The midwife wraps him in a flour sack and hands him to Mary. She looks at the tiny red face, the fists already clenched like he is ready to fight the world, and whispers, "My little warrior, this land will bend for you one day." William stops pacing, looks at his son and grunts, "Another mouth to feed. Pray he's strong enough to plow." Henry's first breath tastes of wood smoke, horse manure, and the bitter tang of poverty that clings to everything in Dearborn. He grows up sleeping on a pallet of corn husks beside 7 brothers and sisters, listening to the wind howl through cracks his father never fixes because work is for the fields, not the house. By 4, he is following William to the barn, holding the lantern while his father sharpens plow blades by moonlight. By 6, he is driving oxen that are older than he is, cursing them in words he learned from his father's whip. By 8, he is repairing the neighbor's scythe because his hands are small enough to fit the rivets. The farm teaches him its first lesson. Nothing comes easy. Everything must be fought for, and nothing lasts unless you make it last. One winter night when the snow is waist-deep and the family huddles around the stove sharing 1 potato each, Henry looks at his father's calloused hands and asks, "Pa, why do we break our backs for land that hates us?" William's answer is a backhand that leaves a mark for a week. "Because the land doesn't hate us, boy. Machines do. They take jobs, take souls. Stick to the plow and thank God for it." Henry never asks again.
but he never forgets. At 12, he finds his first machine, a neighbor's broken pocket watch, dropped in the creek and rusted shut. He takes it apart on the barn floor with a knife and a nail, piecing the gears back together by moonlight until the hands tick again. William finds him at it and explodes. "Waste of time! Fix the harness instead!" Henry hides the watch under his shirt and says nothing. But that night, alone in the loft, he winds it and listens to the tick, 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 like a heart beating against the silence of the farm. It is the first time he hears a machine speak, and the machine says, "I can be more." By 14, he is apprenticed to a watchmaker in Detroit, 25 miles away by foot. He walks it every Sunday, carrying a sack of gooseberries to trade for lessons. The watchmaker, an old German named Schlatter, sees the fire in the boy's eyes and teaches him everything: gears, springs, mainsprings, balance wheels. Henry sleeps in the shop on a bed of leather scraps, dreams of engines that run on their own. He returns to the farm changed. William sees it immediately. "You smell like city now. Get back to work." But Henry is already gone. He spends nights in the barn drawing steam engines on feed sacks, whispering to the shadows, "One day I'll build something that moves the world." The farm laughs at him through the wind. William beats the dream out of him with a plow handle. But the dream does not break. It hardens, like iron in a forge. And one day, when the world is ready, the farm boy will rise from dear-born dirt and build an empire of steel and speed that will make his father's plow look like a child's toy. Because Henry Ford was not born on a farm, he was forged there. And the first fire that tempered him was the cold, cruel flame of poverty that burns hotter than any engine ever will.
April 7th, 1947, 11:40 p.m. Fairlane, Dearborn. A spring storm knocks out every light in the county. The great house is dark, except for candles and a dying fire. Henry Ford, 83, lies in the same iron bed he bought in 1903, skin like parchment, eyes still burning. Clara sits beside him, holding the same wrench she gave him as a wedding gift 59 years ago. Edsel is gone. The company is gone from his hands. The Rouge runs without him now. Henry is delirious, calling for engines that never existed, talking to machines only he can hear. He whispers names: Clara, Edsel, Barney Oldfield, the 999, Tin Lizzie. He whispers numbers: $5, $260, 15 million, 93 minutes. Clara leans close. She asks the question she has never asked. "Henry, was it worth it?" He turns his head slowly, eyes clearing for one final moment. He looks at her like he is 24 again, standing in a woodshed with steam in his face. He smiles the smallest, saddest smile the world has ever seen. Every damn minute. Then he dies. No fanfare, no cameras, just a candle flickering out, and a wrench falling from an old woman's hand. They bury him 3 days later in a simple grave at St. Martha's Episcopal Church, Dearborn. No monument, no inscription except Henry Ford, 1863, 1947.
That is all. The world stops anyway. Factory shut for 1 minute of silence across the planet. Radio stations go dark. In Times Square the lights dim. In London, Paris, Tokyo, Buenos Aires, the same minute of silence. 15 million Model Ts still on the road seem to pause. The train carries him past the Rouge. 100,000 workers line the tracks in the rain, hats over hearts, tears cutting channels through decades of grease. They do not cheer. They only watch the train go by and whisper one word: boss. Afterward, the numbers roll in like thunder. One man put 1/6 of all Americans to work at some point. One man's wages created the first middle class. One man's car shrank the planet. One man's assembly line taught every tyrant how to build faster. One man's hate taught every bigot how to print faster. He was hero and villain in the same breath. He freed the farmer and enslaved the worker. He ended distance and began alienation. He gave the world speed and took away its silence. He built an empire of steel and lost his only son to it. He preached peace and armed 2 world wars. He hated bankers and became the richest of them all. He never finished high school and rewrote the rules of civilization. He is the paradox in human form. Walk any highway today, 2025, and every car you see, electric, hybrid, hydrogen, whatever, carries Henry Ford's DNA. Every assembly line, every timed second, every interchangeable part, every affordable dream on wheels began in a freezing woodshed with a man who refused to plow. He moved the world. Literally. He took a planet that walked, rode horses, or stayed home forever, and gave it 45 miles an hour for $260 cash. He took time itself, broke it into pieces, and made it obey. And when he died, the world did not stop moving. It only moved faster. Because Henry Ford is not in that grave in Dearborn. He is in every engine that ever coughed to life. He is in every paycheck that bought a better life. He is in every open road that was once a prison. He is in every dark factory where men still march in black shirts to a rhythm he invented. And he is in every hateful page that still poisons minds because he let the devil borrow his printing press. Love him, hate him, fear him, thank him, but never forget him. Because the farm boy who talked to watches grew up to make the whole world listen to one sound, the sound of progress running at full throttle with no brakes and no reverse. Henry Ford is dead. Long live Henry Ford, the man who moved the world and never once looked back to see what he left behind.
1919 to 1927. The war is over. The empire is at its peak. Henry Ford is 60, the richest man on earth, worshipped like a saint. And something inside him rots. It starts with a newspaper. He buys the Dearborn Independent in 1919 for $5,000, a small-town rag he turns into a megaphone for his private demons. The first issue under his control is harmless. Then, May 22, 1920, the headline screams, "The International Jew, the World's Problem." 91 articles follow over 7 years, each one worse than the last. Jews control banks. Jews control Hollywood. Jews control the press. Jews started the war. Jews are plotting world domination. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a forged hate tract, is serialized word for word. Ford forces every dealership to sell subscriptions. Buy a Model T, get the Independent free. Millions of copies flood America. The hate spreads like gasoline fire. Adolf Hitler reads it in Munich prison, calls Ford "my inspiration." He keeps a photo of Henry on his desk. In 1923, the Independent accuses Jewish jazz of corrupting American youth. In 1924, it claims Jews invented communism to enslave Christians. In 1925, the Jew is the world's enigma, poor in his masses, yet he controls the world's finances. Henry signs every article by Henry Ford, even though Ernest Liebold, his personal secretary, a German anti-Semite, writes most. But Henry approves every word. He tells friends, "The Jews are the scavengers of the world." He tells reporters, "I know who causes wars, the international Jewish bankers." The backlash is slow at first. Jewish groups boycott Ford cars. Dealers quit. Sales dip 20% in big cities. Henry does not care. He doubles down. 1924, Aaron Shapiro, Jewish lawyer organizing farm cooperatives, sues the Independent for libel. The trial is a circus. Ford avoids the stand for months, claiming illness. March 1927, he crashes his car, many suspect staged, to dodge testifying. The jury deadlocks. A mistrial is declared. Shapiro settles for $1 and an apology. July 7, 1927, Henry signs the apology Liebold writes. It is printed in every major paper. I deplore the tragic effects of my writings. I am deeply mortified. I ask my fellow citizens of Jewish faith to forgive me. He shuts down the Independent. He donates to Jewish charities. He meets with rabbis. But the damage is done. The books, The International Jew, 4 volumes compiling the articles, sell millions worldwide. They are translated into 16 languages. Hitler quotes them in Mein Kampf. Nazi youth distribute them at rallies. In 1938, Hitler awards Ford the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, the highest Nazi honor for a foreigner. He accepts it. He wears it to his 75th birthday party. Clara begs him to return it. He refuses. Edsel, married to a Jewish woman, begs him to stop. He refuses. The hate festers until his death. Why? No one knows. Some say a bad business deal with Jewish bankers in 1915. Some say Liebold poisoned him. Some say the farm boy never outgrew small-town prejudice. Henry never explains. He only says once to a friend, "They're different, that's all." 1941, America enters World War II. River Rouge builds bombers to fight the Nazis Ford inspired. 1945, Allied troops liberate Dachau. They find stacks of the International Jew in the barracks. Henry sees the photos in the papers. He has a stroke that night. He never speaks of it. He dies 2 years later, silent on the subject that stained his soul. The anti-Semitism storm was not a footnote. It was the black hole at the center of the legend. It turned the man who freed the masses into the idol of monsters. It poisoned the legacy of the assembly line, the $5 day, the Model T. It proved that genius and hate can live in the same heart. And when Henry Ford finally faced his maker on April 7, 1947, the angels must have asked him one question. Why? He probably answered the same way he answered everything. Because I could. The dark turn was not a turn. It was always there, waiting for power to set it free. And when it flew on wings Henry built himself, straight into the heart of the 20th century's greatest evil. Forgiven by some, forgotten by none. The stain that no amount of steel could ever wash away.
May 26, 1927, 3:17 p.m. Highland Park. The 15 millionth Model T rolls off the line, driven by Henry and Edsel together. Henry kills the engine in the middle of the yard. Silence falls like a guillotine. 100,000 workers stand frozen. Henry steps out, looks at the car that made him God, and says 5 words no one expected. "We are done with her." Then he walks away. The next day, every assembly line on Earth that bears the name Ford stops dead. For the first time in 19 years, no Model T is built. Not one. The world panics. Dealers scream. Stockholders threaten lawsuits. Reporters write obituaries. Ford kills the goose that laid the golden egg. Henry disappears. No one sees him for weeks. He is locked in a secret design room at the Rouge with 20 hand-picked engineers and one order. Build me a car that makes the Model T look like a horse and buggy. 6 months of hell follow. Factories sit silent. 80,000 workers are laid off with full pay. Henry refuses to let them starve. The press calls it the 6-month suicide. Chevrolet surges past Ford in sales for the first time ever. Wall Street bets everything that Henry has finally lost his mind. Inside the locked room, Henry works 18 hours a day. He sketches on butcher paper. He tears up sketches. He screams at engineers. He sleeps on the floor. Edsel watches his father age 10 years in 6 months. Clara brings food and says nothing. December 1st, 1927, New York Auto Show. A single black curtain hides the stage. Henry walks out alone, thinner, eyes burning. He says only, "Pull it." The curtain drops. The 1928 Model A stands revealed. Sleek, low, 4-wheel brakes, safety glass, 3-speed transmission, 40 horsepower, choice of 4 colors, the first Ford ever to break the black monopoly. The crowd is speechless. Then it explodes. People rush the stage. Women cry. Men throw hats in the air. Henry stands silent while the world worships at his feet again. First day orders 400,000. First week 750,000. First month over 1 million paid deposits. Factories reopen overnight. Laid-off workers flood back, kissing the ground. The Rouge runs 3 shifts again. By spring 1928, Model A's are everywhere, in Arabian green, Niagara blue, dawn gray, and Andalusite blue. The public goes insane for color. Henry hates it, but allows it. The car is faster, smoother, quieter, safer. It has a real horn instead of a squeeze bulb. It has a gas gauge. It has style. It saves Ford Motor Company from the grave Henry himself dug. 1929, 1.5 million Model A's sold. 1930, another 1.1 million. The Depression is crushing America. But Ford survives because one man killed his sacred cow and built a new god in 6 months. May 26, 1931, 4 years to the day after the last Model T. Henry drives the 5 millionth Model A out of the Rouge personally. He stops in the yard, gets out, looks at the sea of workers, and finally smiles. He says, "We buried the past, now we drive the future." Then he hands the keys to a random worker and walks away. The Model A rescue was not engineering, it was resurrection. Henry Ford murdered the car that made him immortal, and 6 months later rose from its grave with something faster, prettier, stronger. He proved once and for all that even gods answer to him. The Model T was the past. The Model A was the warning. Never think Henry Ford is finished. Because the man who can kill his own legend and build a better one in half a year is not a businessman. He is a force of nature, wearing a black tie and carrying a wrench instead of a lightning bolt. From T to triumph, 6 months of darkness, one reveal that lit the world again, and the empire that nearly died with its beloved Tin Lizzie was reborn, shiny, colorful, and unstoppable.
1927 to 1941. River Rouge, Michigan. 93 miles of railroad track. 16 million square feet under roof. 100,000 men in black shirts marching in and out like ants in a colony that has learned to wear shoes. This is no longer a factory. This is a nation. Ore boats, the length of city blocks, steam up the Rouge River, unload directly into Ford furnaces. Coal mountains rise and vanish overnight. Sand for glass, rubber from Ford plantations in Brazil, timber from Ford forests in the Upper Peninsula, all arrive on Ford trains, Ford ships, Ford schedules. Nothing enters or leaves without Henry's permission. He owns the river. He owns the horizon. He owns the air above it, smoke so thick the sun looks bruised. From raw earth to finished car in 48 hours. 1 million tons of steel a month. One complete Model A every 8 seconds at peak. 120,000 workers on payroll at the height of the Depression, when the rest of America is eating from garbage cans. River Rouge is the largest single industrial complex mankind has ever built. It has its own police force, the Ford Service Department, feared more than the mafia. Hospital, fire brigade, power plant, larger than most cities. Newspaper, the Rouge News. Court system, Harry Bennett's fist. Henry walks the catwalks every day, black suit, black hat, black eyes. Workers call him the old man to his face and God behind their backs. He stops the entire line with one raised hand if he sees a single bolt out of place. He fires men for chewing gum.
He promotes men for shaving every morning. He knows every machine by the sound of its heartbeat. At night, the Rouge glows like Mordor. Furnaces roar red against the sky. Molten steel pours in rivers of white fire. The ground vibrates constantly. Men work 24 hours a day in shifts, never seeing sunlight. They're paid better than anywhere on earth, and they hate every minute. The Depression is a guillotine across America. 30 million unemployed, unemployment, breadlines, suicides. River Rouge never slows. Henry keeps every man on payroll, cuts hours instead of heads. He feeds 60,000 families when the banks feed none. People walk from Texas to beg at the Rouge gates. The service department beats them back with clubs. 1937, the Battle of the Overpass. Union organizers tried to hand out leaflets. Harry Bennett's men, baseball bats, brass knuckles, lead pipes, break jaws, backs, and the myth of Ford invincibility. Photographers capture Walter Reuther being thrown down the stairs. The pictures go around the world. Henry is in Florida, pretending not to know. He tells reporters, "My men don't need unions. They have me." The war comes again. River Rouge converts overnight. Model Ts become Jeeps. Civilian cars become bombers. One B-24 Liberator rolls out every 63 minutes. Willow Run, the mile-long annex, becomes the largest room on Earth. 60,000 women, Rosie the Riveters, flood in wearing pants and welding masks. Henry, now 78, walks the line slower, but still every day. He stops at a woman riveting wings and asks, "You happy here, miss?" She answers, "I'm free here, Mr. Ford." He nods once and moves on. That night, he tells Edsel, already dying of cancer, "We built something bigger than us. Now it builds itself." Edsel dies in 1943. Henry does not cry in public. He goes to the Rouge alone at 3 a.m. and stands on the same catwalk he stood on in 1927 and watches the line that never sleeps. 100,000 black shirts still marching, the furnaces still roaring, the river still bleeding iron. He whispers to the dark, "I wanted to free men from drudgery. I only taught them a faster way to serve the machine." The machine does not answer. It only keeps moving. Because River Rouge is no longer Henry Ford's empire. Henry Ford is the River Rouge's last replaceable part. And the empire he built to conquer distance, poverty, and time has become a beast that devours everything, including the man who thought it was its master. 93 miles of track, 16 million square feet of roof, 100,000 souls, and one old man in a black hat, standing on a catwalk, watching his creation outgrow his soul. This was the River Rouge Empire, the closest thing to hell that ever paid heaven's wages. 13. The Black Team. Assembly Line Genius.
October 7th, 1913. Highland Park Plant, Detroit. A cathedral of glass and steel 4 stories high. Sunlight pouring through 50,000 square feet of windows onto a floor the size of a battlefield. Henry Ford, 50 years old, coat off, sleeves rolled, stands on a catwalk above the experimental line, wearing black trousers and a black shirt, the uniform he has ordered every worker to wear from now on. He looks like a priest about to perform a miracle. Below him, 140 men in identical black shirts stand frozen, waiting for the whistle. Henry raises one hand. He drops it. A bare Model T chassis on 4 wheels slides forward on steel rails. Stopwatch starts. Man number 1 bolts on the engine. 4 bolts, 6 seconds. Man number 2 drops the radiator. 4 seconds. Man number 3 attaches the body. 12 seconds. The chassis never stops moving. The line is gravity-fed at first, then rope, then chain. Every man has one job, only one job. And he does it faster than any human has ever done anything in history. At the end of the line, 93 minutes after the whistle, a complete running Model T rolls off under its own power. The factory goes dead silent. Then the black-shirted army erupts. Henry does not smile. He simply clicks the stopwatch and says, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Again, faster." They do it again, and again, and again. By December, the time is down to 90 minutes. By April 1914, it is 12 hours for the entire factory to produce what used to take 12 days. By 1916, one Model T rolls off every 24 seconds. The men in black shirts become known as the Black Team. They move like machines. They are paid like princes. They hate Henry and worship him in the same breath. He walks the line every day, stopwatch in hand, eyes like ice. If a man is 1 second slow, Henry stops the entire line. He stands in front of the worker and asks, "Are you tired, son?" If the answer is yes, the man is fired on the spot. If the answer is no, Henry says, "Then move your hands like your family depends on it," because they do. The line never stops again. Workers drop from exhaustion. They are replaced before they hit the floor. The sociological department, Henry's private army of investigators, visits every worker's home to make sure they are sober, married, and saving money. If not, they are fired. If they are, they get profit sharing. The Black Team becomes the most efficient, best paid, most terrified workforce in history. In 1913, Ford produces 248,307 cars. In 1914, 308,162. In 1915, 501,462. In 1916, 734,811. Half the cars in the world now say Ford on the radiator. The price drops from $850 to $360. A skilled worker can buy a Model T with 4 months' wages. Henry stands on the catwalk one night in 1916, alone, watching the line run under floodlights. Thousands of black shirts moving in perfect synchrony.
chassis gliding like ghosts, sparks from welding flying like stars. The roar is constant, deafening, beautiful. He whispers to no one, "I have made time itself obey me." Clara visits once. She stands beside him on the catwalk, holds his hand, says nothing for an hour. Then she whispers, "You have built a god, Henry. Be careful it does not eat you." He does not answer. He only squeezes her hand and keeps watching the line. Because Henry Ford has discovered the final secret. Men are parts too. Replaceable, interchangeable, perfectible. And when you arrange them exactly right, they can do something no king, no army, no religion ever did. They make the impossible ordinary. 93 minutes. From nothing to a machine that will outlive empires. The black team never sleeps. The line never stops. And somewhere in the roar of a million moving parts, you can still hear the heartbeat of the farm boy who once talked to watches and taught the entire world to tick at his speed. The assembly line is not a factory. It is a religion, and Henry Ford is its merciless god in a black shirt, holding a stopwatch instead of a crucifix. Glory, glory, hallelujah. The machine marches on.
1908 to 1927. America drowns in black. From the Atlantic to the Pacific, from the Canadian border to the Gulf, every road, every lane, every dirt track is a river of identical black Model Ts. They pour out of Highland Park and River Rouge like biblical locusts. 1909, 10,607. 1914, 308,162. 1916, 734,811. 1921, 1,301,067 in a single year. 1923, one Model T completes every 10 seconds, day and night, 24/7, 365. By 1927, the total stands at 15,046,359. More than every other car company on Earth combined times 2. The planet itself seems to run on 4 cylinders, 20 horsepower, and Henry Ford's stubborn will. The nickname Tin Lizzie starts as an insult from the rich, cheap tin can on wheels. Farmers turn it into a love song. Lizzie can do anything. She pulls plows when the tractor breaks. She saws wood with a belt off the flywheel. She generates electricity for the farmhouse. She carries 14 people to church on Sunday, 6 inside, 8 on the running boards. In 1919, a Kansas farmer welds a second Model T body on top of the first to make a double-decker for his 12 children. In 1923, a preacher in Georgia drives his Lizzie 22,000 miles on a missionary tour, baptizing people in every river he crosses. In 1925, an Australian outback mailman covers 25,000 miles in 1 year without a single breakdown. In the Arctic, Model Ts with ski attachments deliver medicine to Eskimo villages. In the Sahara, Bedouins strap water barrels to the running boards and call them iron camels. Everywhere you look, black. City streets at rush hour, black. Country roads at dawn,
black. Hollywood movies, black. Presidential parades, black. Wilson, Harding, Coolidge, Hoover, all ride in modified Lizzies. Ford dealers sprout like weeds. 7,000 across America, more than all other brands combined, ×2. A farmer in Iowa can order a Model T by mail. It arrives by train in a crate. He assembles it with a screwdriver and a wrench in 2 hours, drives it home the same day. The price falls like a stone. 1909, $850. 1914, $490. 1916, $360. 1925, $260 cash, less than a good suit. A school teacher earns one in 3 months, a factory worker in 4. Henry stands on the Highland Park roof in 1921 and watches the endless stream of black cars leaving the factory gates. He whispers to Clara beside him, "I wanted to put the world on wheels. I didn't know the world would all choose the same color." She answered, "They chose freedom, Henry. You just painted it black." By 1926, the joke is no longer funny. Drive down any highway, and every third car is a Model T. Every second car is a Ford. Every car that is not a Ford wishes it were. The rich switch to Cadillac and Packard just to be different. The rest of humanity drives Tin Lizzies, and they love them with a passion that borders on religion. When the 15th millionth rolls off the line on May 26, 1927, the entire factory stops. 100,000 workers stand silent. Henry himself drives it out, Edsel beside him. The car is polished like a mirror. Henry stops in the middle of the yard, kills the engine, steps out, and for once says nothing, because there is nothing left to say. The Model T has done what no army, no empire, no idea ever did. It has conquered the earth without firing a shot. It has shrunk continents. It has ended rural isolation. It has given ordinary people wings made of steel and gasoline. It has turned farmers into citizens of the world. And it has made Henry Ford the closest thing to a god the 20th century will ever see. On the night of May 26, 1927, Henry stands alone on the darkened assembly line. The belts are still. The machines are quiet. He runs his hand over the last Model T one final time. He whispers to it the way he once whispered to broken watches. "You did good, old girl. You did real good." Then he walks away. The flood is over. The world is black, and it will never be the same shade of slow again. Tin Lizzie is dead. Long live Tin Lizzie. Because for 19 years, one ugly, cheap, unbreakable black car carried humanity out of the 19th century and dropped it, laughing, into the future, at 20 miles an hour with the wind in its hair, and Henry Ford's name stamped forever on its heart.
January 5th, 1914. Highland Park plant, 6 a.m. 0 degrees outside. Wind off the river like a knife. 10,000 men stand in the snow outside the gates. Some have walked from Ohio. Some slept in the street for 3 days. They are not on strike. They are begging for jobs. Inside, Henry Ford, 50. Black shirt, black tie, no coat.
stands on a platform above the paymaster's cage with a single sheet of paper. He does not smile. He speaks into a megaphone so loud it hurts. Starting today, every man who works an honest 8-hour shift at Ford Motor Company will be paid $5 a day. Minimum. No exceptions. Silence. Then the roar is so loud the windows rattle. $5 a day in 1914 is insane. The average factory wage is $2.34 for 9 or 10 hours. Ford just more than doubled it overnight. The crowd storms the gates. Police on horseback cannot hold them back. Men climb fences, fight, cry, pray. By noon, the line is 12 abreast and 4 miles long. Henry watches from the roof, arms folded. Reporters scream questions. Why give away your profits? Are you a socialist? Have you lost your mind? Henry's answer is one sentence. I am not giving away profits. I am creating customers. He is right. Within weeks, workers who earned $2.34 now earn $5. They do the impossible. They buy the very cars they build. A man who used to walk 3 hours to work now drives a brand-new Model T home in 4 months. Detroit explodes. Grocers, butchers, clothiers, landlords triple prices overnight. Entire neighborhoods of dirt floor shacks turn into brick houses. Churches overflow. Saloons empty. Ford dealers cannot keep cars in stock. The sociological department, Henry's morality police, now has 200 investigators making sure workers stay sober, save money, and speak English. If you fail, you lose the $5. If you succeed, you are rich beyond dreams. The nation loses its mind. Wall Street calls it economic blasphemy. The New York Times, Ford's folly will bankrupt him in 6 months. 6 months later, Ford sells more cars than the rest of the industry combined. The $5 day becomes the single most revolutionary act in American industrial history. It kills the 9-hour day. It kills child labor in factories. It creates the American middle class with one signature. It turns immigrants into citizens who own property. It makes Henry Ford the most loved and most hated man alive. Preachers call him a saint. Socialists call him a traitor for destroying class warfare. Workers call him God. He walks the line every morning now, shaking hands, looking men in the eye. One worker, a Polish immigrant who earned $1.80 yesterday and $5 today, falls to his knees and tries to kiss Henry's shoes. Henry pulls him up and says, "Stand up, you're an American now." That night he goes home to Fair Lane. Clara meets him at the door. She has read the papers. She asks quietly, "Henry, can we afford this?" He answers, "We can't afford not to." Then he sits at the kitchen table and calculates on a scrap of paper. 15,000 workers times $5 times 300 days equals $22,500,000 a year. Profit the previous year, $30 million. He looks up and smiles for the first time all day. We'll make it back in volume. And they do. 1920, Ford sells 1,250,000 cars. Half the cars on Earth are Model Ts. Half the owners are Ford workers who bought them with Ford wages. The $5 miracle is not charity. It is the coldest, hardest, most brilliant business decision ever made. Henry Ford did not raise wages to be kind. He raised them to create a nation of buyers addicted to his product. He turned his workers into his market. He turned poverty into purchasing power. He turned the working man into the driving man. And in doing so, he bought the soul of the 20th century for $5 a day. America will never be the same. The middle class is born screaming in the snow outside a factory gate on January 5th, 1914, because one man decided that the people who build the future should be able to afford to live in it. $5. The price of a revolution.
13. The Black Team. Assembly Line Genius. October 7th, 1913. Highland Park Plant, Detroit. A cathedral of glass and steel 4 stories high. Sunlight pouring through 50,000 square feet of windows onto a floor the size of a battlefield. Henry Ford, 50 years old, coat off, sleeves rolled, stands on a catwalk above the experimental line, wearing black trousers and a black shirt, the uniform he has ordered every worker to wear from now on. He looks like a priest about to perform a miracle. Below him, 140 men in identical black shirts stand frozen, waiting for the whistle. Henry raises one hand. He drops it. A bare Model T chassis on 4 wheels slides forward on steel rails. Stopwatch starts. Man number 1 bolts on the engine. 4 bolts, 6 seconds. Man number 2 drops the radiator. 4 seconds. Man number 3 attaches the body. 12 seconds. The chassis never stops moving. The line is gravity-fed at first, then rope, then chain. Every man has one job, only one job, and he does it faster than any human has ever done anything in history. At the end of the line, 93 minutes after the whistle, a complete, running Model T rolls off under its own power. The factory goes dead silent. Then the black-shirted army erupts. Henry does not smile. He simply clicks the stopwatch and says loud enough for everyone to hear, "Again, faster." They do it again, and again, and again. By December, the time is down to 90 minutes. By April 1914, it is 12 hours for the entire factory to produce what used to take 12 days. By 1916, one Model T rolls off every 24 seconds. The men in black shirts become known as the Black Team. They move like machines. They are paid like princes. They hate Henry and worship him in the same breath. He walks the line every day, stopwatch in hand, eyes like ice. If a man is 1 second slow, Henry stops the entire line. He stands in front of the worker and asks, "Are you tired, son?" If the answer is yes, the man is fired on the spot. If the answer is no, Henry says, "Then move your hands like your family depends on it," because they do. The line never stops again. Workers drop from exhaustion. They are replaced before they hit the floor. The sociological department, Henry's private army of investigators, visits every worker's home to make sure they are sober, married, and saving money. If not, they are fired. If they are, they get profit sharing. The Black Team becomes the most efficient, best paid, most terrified workforce in history. In 1913, Ford produces 248,307 cars. In 1914, 308,162. In 1915, 501,462. In 1916, 734,811.
Half the cars in the world now say Ford on the radiator. The price drops from $850 to $360. A skilled worker can buy a Model T with 4 months' wages. Henry stands on the catwalk one night in 1916, alone, watching the line run under floodlights. Thousands of black shirts moving in perfect synchrony. Chassis gliding like ghosts, sparks from welding flying like stars. The roar is constant, deafening, beautiful. He whispers to no one. I have made time itself obey me. Clara visits once. She stands beside him on the catwalk, holds his hand, says nothing for an hour. Then she whispers, You have built a god, Henry. Be careful it does not eat you. He does not answer. He only squeezes her hand and keeps watching the line. Because Henry Ford has discovered the final secret. Men are parts, too. Replaceable, interchangeable, perfectible. And when you arrange them exactly right, they can do something no king, no army, no religion ever did. They make the impossible ordinary. 93 minutes. From nothing to a machine that will outlive empires. The black team never sleeps. The line never stops. And somewhere in the roar of a million moving parts, you can still hear the heartbeat of the farm boy who once talked to watches and taught the entire world to tick at his speed. The assembly line is not a factory. It is a religion. And Henry Ford is its merciless god in a black shirt, holding a stopwatch instead of a crucifix. Glory, glory, hallelujah. The machine marches on.
June 16th, 1903. Mack Avenue, Detroit. A converted wagon factory that still smells of horse sweat and varnish. 12 men sit around a scarred oak table, littered with coffee cups, cigars, and $28,000 in crisp bills, mostly Alexander Malcolmson's coal money. Henry Ford, 39, stands at the head. No coat, sleeves rolled, eyes burning like he has not slept since the last betrayal. He does not sit. He speaks. This time, the company keeps my name. This time, no one fires me. This time, we build cars for farmers, clerks, and teachers, not just millionaires. Sign or walk away now. One by one, they sign. The charter is written in iron. Henry Ford, 25.5% ownership, but absolute control of design and engineering. No interference, no luxury nonsense. Profits reinvested until every working man can afford one. Malcolmson signs last, smirking, thinking he will bend Henry later. He will learn. July 15th, 1903. The first Ford Motor Company car rolls out of the shop at 3:17 a.m. It is a simple 2-cylinder runabout, 8 horsepower, red paint, brass lamps, $850 cash. Henry himself drives it down Mack Avenue at dawn, no one else in the city awake except the milk wagons. He parks in front of the Pontchartrain Hotel, where the quadricycle died 7 years earlier, revs the engine until the doorman comes out and says, "Tell them the farmer is back." The doorman remembers. He laughs and salutes. By October, they have sold 215 cars. By Christmas, 658. By June 1904, 1,708 cars and the $100,000 profit. Henry uses every penny to enlarge the factory. He hires men who believe, fires men who don't. He walks the floor every day with a stopwatch in hand, asking one question: how do we make it faster, lighter, cheaper? Workers call him the pacing Mustang because he never stops moving. Clara comes once a week with Edsel, brings sandwiches, sits on a crate, and watches her husband rule his new kingdom. She never interrupts. She only smiles when he looks up and sees her. In 1905, he releases the Model B, 4-cylinder luxury, and Model F, cheaper, 2-cylinder. Both sell. But Henry is already drawing something else on butcher paper at night. A car so simple a child could repair it. A car so tough it could pull itself out of mud with its own crank. A car so cheap it would make millionaires irrelevant. He tells the board, "We will build one model only. Black. Cheap. Millions of them." Malcolmson explodes. "You'll bankrupt us." Henry answers quietly, "Or make us immortal." The fight lasts 2 years. Malcolmson tries to force luxury cars. Henry quietly buys stock from frightened investors using profits Malcolmson wanted to pocket. By 1908, Henry owns 51%. Malcolmson is out. The Dodge brothers stay, grumbling but loyal. For now. October 1st, 1908. Henry stands on a platform in the Piquette Avenue plant. Hundreds of workers gathered. He pulls a tarp off a strange-looking car. High chassis, skinny wheels, no frills. He says only 4 words. "This is the future." Then he climbs in, starts it with one crank, and drives it straight through the factory wall, a planned hole covered with paper. The car roars out into the Detroit street. Workers cheer until their throats bleed. The Model T is born. Price, $850, same as the first 1903 Model A. Weight, 1,200 pounds. Horsepower, 20. Top speed, 45 miles per hour. And every part interchangeable. Henry looks at the hole in the wall, then at the men, and says, "Any customer can have a car painted any color he wants, so long as it is black." They laugh. They have no idea he is deadly serious. By 1910, Ford Motor Company is the largest automaker in America. By 1913, the largest in the world. By 1914, 1 out of every 2 cars on Earth carries a Ford badge. And Henry Ford, twice fired, twice buried, twice laughed at, stands on the roof of the Piquette Avenue plant at midnight, city lights spread below him like a kingdom conquered, and whispers to the dark, "Third time's the charm." He is wrong. It was not charm. It was vengeance. Vengeance against every man who ever said no. Vengeance against every board that ever fired him. Vengeance against poverty, horses, and the slow old world that tried to keep a farm boy in the dirt. The Ford Motor Company did not rise from ashes. It rose from graves Henry dug himself. And this time, no one, no partner, no banker, no king
would ever pull him out of the driver's seat again, because the third time was not charm, it was resurrection. And the man at the wheel had finally learned how to make the world run on his time.
Piquette Avenue Plant, Detroit. The air smells of fresh paint, hot metal, and revolution. Henry Ford stands on a wooden crate in the middle of the factory floor, holding a single sheet of paper that will change the world more than any battle ever fought. On it is written one price, $850. He raises it above his head like Moses with the tablets. Hundreds of workers, grimy, tired, loyal, fall silent. He speaks, voice calm but carrying to the rafters. This is the Model N, 20 horsepower, 1,000 pounds, $850 cash. No options, no excuses. We are going to build so many that every school teacher, every preacher, every farmer with a good year can drive one. A ripple of disbelief. An $850 car in 1906 is like selling a house for the price of a bicycle. Oldsmobile's curved dash is $650, but only 7 horsepower and fragile as glass. Cadillac's luxury models are $2,000 and up. The rich laugh at the idea of a poor man's car. Henry does not laugh. He has already sold 8,457 Model Ns before the first one rolls off the line. Orders pour in by mail, by the thousands. Farmers send cash wrapped in rags. A preacher in Iowa sends a $10 bill every month for 85 months. A black sharecropper in Georgia walks 200 miles to Detroit with $850 in a coffee can to buy one outright. The factory cannot keep up. They run 3 shifts. They still cannot keep up. By Christmas 1906, the waiting list is 18 months. People sleep outside the factory gates in tents just to be first when the next batch comes out. The Model N is ugly to rich men's standards, boxy, high wheels, no top, no windshield, no doors. But it is unbreakable. It starts on the first crank even at 20 below. It climbs hills that kill horses. It fords streams the name will later mock. A farmer in Kansas pulls 14 stumps in one afternoon with his Model N and a logging chain. A doctor in Montana delivers babies 30 miles apart in the same night. A preacher in Texas drives 200 miles to perform a wedding, then 200 miles back for Sunday service, all on one tank of gasoline. Henry drives one himself, everywhere. He takes it to county fairs, races it against horses, lets children sit in it. He stands on the running board and shouts, "This is not a rich man's toy. This is freedom on 4 wheels." The press calls it the Everyman's horseless carriage. Henry hates the nickname. He prefers the car that killed the horse. In 1907, he releases the Model R and S, fancier versions at $750 and $700. They sell too, but the N remains the hammer. Total production, 1906-1908, over 20,000 units. More cars than any company has ever built in such a short time. The profit is enormous. Henry uses every cent to buy land on the River Rouge for the factory that will one day swallow the horizon. He tells Clara one night while they sit on the porch watching Model Ns roll past their house every few minutes. "They laughed when I said I'd make a car for the masses. Listen now." The street is a river of headlights. Clara smiles and squeezes his hand. She does not need to. The sound of 20,000 Model N engines is her lullaby. In small towns across America, horses begin to disappear from hitching posts. Buggy whip factories close overnight. Blacksmiths hang themselves or learn to weld. The world tilts on its axis, and at the center of the earthquake stands one quiet man who never finished high school, watching his $850 miracle flood the country like black locusts. Reporters ask him, "Mr. Ford, how does it feel to be the richest man in Michigan?" He answers, "I'm not rich yet. I'm just getting started." Then he walks back into the factory to figure out how to drop the price another $200, because Henry Ford has seen the future. And the future is not a luxury. It is a necessity. And he is about to make it cheaper than sin. The Model N was not the first shot in a war Henry would win completely. A war against distance, a war against loneliness, a war against the idea that only the rich deserve to move fast. It was ugly, it was loud, it was perfect. And every time one putt-putted down a dirt road past a stunned farmer leaning on his fence, the 20th century took one more irreversible step forward. $850. Less than a good team of horses, more than a lifetime of walking. The everyman's horseless carriage, the car that taught America that freedom has a price tag. And Henry Ford just made it affordable for everyone.
November 30th, 1901. A cold brick building on Cass Avenue, Detroit. The sign still says Henry Ford Company. Inside, Henry stands in front of new investors who have just given him $28,000 after the $9.99 race victory. They are coal dealer Alexander Malcolmson, lawyer Horace Rackham, the Dodge brothers, and a dozen smaller believers. They toast with whiskey. Henry does not drink. He only says, "This time the company keeps my name forever." They laugh and agree. They give him the title Chief Engineer and 51% control. He starts work immediately. He designs a cheap, reliable four-cylinder car for ordinary people. He builds the first prototype in 6 weeks. 15 horsepower, chain drive, planetary transmission, $1,000 price target. He calls it the Model A again. It is beautiful in its simplicity. He drives it to the investors in January 1902. They love it. Then Malcolmson does what rich men always do. He brings in a professional manager named Henry Leland to streamline production. Leland walks in, looks at Henry's lightweight design, and sneers. "Too flimsy. We need luxury cars for profit." Henry explodes. "This car is for farmers, not bankers." Leland answers, "Farmers don't have money. Bankers do." The fight lasts 6 months. Every week, Leland pushes heavier cars, brass fittings, higher prices. Every week, Henry fights for lightness, simplicity, volume. The board sides with profit. In March 1902, they vote to change direction. They keep the factory, they keep the money, they keep the cars Henry designed. They fire Henry Ford again, second time in 3 years. They even keep the name Henry Ford Company for a few months before changing it to Cadillac.
Henry walks out with nothing but his tools and the clothes on his back. Reporters catch him on the street. "Mr. Ford, is this the end?" He smiles the coldest smile Detroit has ever seen. No, this is the beginning. He goes home to Clara. She is rocking Edsel to sleep. She looks at Henry's face and knows. She does not ask questions. She only says, "How much do we have left?" He answers, "Enough for one more fight." That night, he sits at the kitchen table and writes a single sentence on a piece of paper. "Next company, my name, my rules, my car, or no company at all." He pins it above the stove. Then he starts calling every friend who still believes. He raises $28,000 in cash, mostly from Malcolmson, who now wants back in after seeing Cadillac succeed with Henry's old designs. June 16, 1903. Ford Motor Company is born. Third time. This time the charter is written in blood and iron. Henry Ford owns 25.5%, but has absolute control of engineering and design. No one can fire him. No one can change the vision. Profit is secondary to volume. Malcolmson signs because he thinks he can control Henry later. He is wrong. Dead wrong. The first Ford Motor Company car rolls out July 23, 1903. The Model A. 2 cylinders, 8 horsepower, $850. It is the same basic car Henry designed for the Henry Ford Company that became Cadillac. But now it carries his name. Now it belongs to him. Now no one can take it away. By the end of the first year, they sell 1,708 cars. Profit, $100,000. Henry uses every cent to build the next model. Malcolmson starts complaining about wasting money on cheap cars. Henry smiles and says nothing. He is already drawing the car that will kill Malcolmson's greed forever. The car that will put the world on wheels. The car that will make every previous betrayal look like pocket change. Because Henry Ford has now been buried alive twice, and both times he clawed his way out with nothing but rage and genius. The second grave taught him the final lesson. Never trust a partner who values profit over progress. From this day forward, every decision, every dollar, every bolt in every Ford car will answer to one man and one man alone. And that man has just risen from the dead for the last time.
August 5, 1899. A rented workshop on Mack Avenue, Detroit. The sign outside reads, Detroit Automobile Company. Inside, Henry Ford stands in front of 12 nervous investors holding champagne glasses and fat wallets. They have given him $150,000, more money than he has ever seen in his life, to build a practical automobile for the masses. Henry promised delivery trucks, passenger cars, profits in 6 months. He delivers 20 cars in 2 years. Each one different. Each one hand-built. Each one costing more to make than it sells for. The first car is a delivery wagon with a 2-cylinder engine that overheats in 10 minutes. The second is a fancy runabout with leather seats and brass lamps. Beautiful, slow, and priced for millionaires. The board wants uniformity. Henry wants perfection. They fight every week. Board,
Build the same car every time. Henry, I'm still learning. Bored, stop experimenting with our money. Henry, experimenting is the only way forward. By 1900, they have sold exactly 6 cars. The investors panic. They bring in a new manager, Henry Leyland, future founder of Cadillac, to fix Henry Ford. Leyland walks in, looks at the chaos of half-built chassis and scattered parts, and says, "This isn't a factory. This is a madman's playground." Henry answers, "Good. Madman changed the world." Leyland demands standardized parts, fixed designs, no more changes. Henry refuses. He spends nights in the shop alone, redesigning engines, shaving ounces, chasing a vision no one else can see. Clara brings food he forgets to eat. Edsel, 6 years old, falls asleep on a pile of blueprints. In March 1901, the board meets without Henry. They vote to dissolve the company. They keep the factory. They keep the tools. They keep the name Detroit Automobile. They fire Henry Ford. He walks out with nothing but the clothes on his back and one prototype he built in secret. The newspapers crow. Henry Ford's dream dies again. His old enemies toast with champagne. William Ford reads the headline and finally smiles. Henry goes home to Clara. She is waiting on the porch with coffee and silence. He sits on the step, head in his hands. For the first time in his life, he says the words, "I failed." Clara kneels beside him, puts her hand on his neck. "You built 20 cars with your own hands. That's 20 more than they ever will. Get up." He looks at her, eyes red. "They took everything." She answers, "They took scrap metal. They can't take what's in here." She touches his forehead. That night, he burns every blueprint from the Detroit Automobile Company in the backyard. Sparks rise into the Michigan sky like souls escaping hell. He watches them disappear and makes a promise to the dark. "Next time I build a company, no one will ever take it from me again." He starts over in a shed behind the house, with $1,000 borrowed from friends and the sale of Clara's jewelry. He builds 2 race cars, Sweepstakes and 999. He hires a bicycle racer named Barney Oldfield, who has never driven. He paints them blood red. He tells Barney, "Win or we're finished forever." October 1901, Grosse Pointe Ice Track. The 999 wins. The world explodes. Investors who laughed now beg. Henry looks each one in the eye and says, "Cash only, no control." The second grave is dug, but Henry Ford has learned how to rise from it. The Detroit Automobile Company was not a failure. It was tuition. Expensive, brutal tuition that taught one farm boy the only lesson that matters in business. Never again let anyone else hold the steering wheel of your dream.